What is up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm Jacob Turner, joining me as he always does, very own publisher Andrew Jones, and AJ here for another edition of the UNC football show. We're going to be previewing Carolina's Saturday evening matchup with North Carolina Central a little bit later on the show. We've got some other topics to hit on as well before we get to that, but just a reminder, 6 p.m. kickoff in Kenan Stadium. Game will be on ACC Network Extra and ESPN Plus, so should be a nice evening game in Kenan Stadium. It was a little hot last week. I was in the stands last week. It was a little hot out there. I think Saturday should be a little bit more comfortable, particularly in that second half.
What's the weather supposed to be?
Yeah, I haven't even looked. I was just thinking about that.
I'm going to do it right now. I haven't looked at all. I was looking at the damn Minneapolis weather for like a month.
Yeah,
leading up to it. And I haven't even looked at the weather for this week. Oh, boy.
81 and rainy, according to this.
81.
A little bit of rain, 30% chance.
Nothing like 22 thou in there for that game.
Yeah. Hopefully the rain holds off, because I know that'll obviously keep some people from going to that one. But
I know that my wife, my daughter, and one of my daughter's friends want to go, and maybe his grandma or something like that.
Okay.
My daughter's never been to a football game before. She's turned 15. She's never been to. She's not a big sports kid. I
know she's been to a couple. I remember she was at an open practice one time, like when it was in Kenan.
She was
in the stands kind of thing. Yeah.
She was in an open practice. She's been to 2 basketball games, but she's actually, what's wild is I'm totally indoctrinating her into the Orioles.
Oh, I love that. So, it's only right.
She knows Gunnar Henderson's walk-up song.
Oh, I love that.
So I'll have the game on. She'll be doing something on her phone or whatever, and I'll suddenly hear the music, and she's like, "Oh, Gunner's up."
That's fantastic.
So I think I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Yeah, man. 15's a good age to get her into the Orioles now. Before you know it, she'll be watching every game with you. So.
Well, she's also starting to recognize that, like Jackson Holiday and Gunner, she goes, they're kind of cute.
Yeah, 100%.
If that helps reel her into the ball game, that's fine.
Whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes to be an Orioles fan. Yeah, that's awesome. It's my kids will be the same way when I ultimately have them. I'm a massive Manchester United fan, so they have no choice but to be a Man United fan and watch games on Saturday and Sunday morning, so that they'll be indoctrinated into that.
If you want food and shelter over your head, you shall root for the Manchester.
You don't have a choice who you root for now. 100%. No, you're absolutely right. But AJ, I don't know how we started talking about the Orioles. We're obviously here to talk Carolina football on this one. Wouldn't be right if we didn't sidebar, but you do have the Orioles over there as well.
I do have a mild affinity for them, I guess.
Yeah, right? Just a little bit, right? Just a little bit, as they say. Doing well too. I remember when I was first few years I started working here. I mean, good Lord, were they horrendous? I felt bad for you a little bit with how bad they were.
But I was. The thing is, when them winning, I deserve it because I stuck through them when they sucked.
You stuck through it, exactly.
And I'm beaming today. Cedric Mullins 2 homers last night. I'm beaming.
Heck yeah, man. Good day for AJ. So hopefully the Orioles, for AJ's sake, keep winning. If you ever see him on a bad mood on a podcast, you probably, because the Orioles must be on a losing streak or something like that. So I'm just joking. You hide it pretty well. AJ, let's start with the injury front just a little bit. And I think on a positive note, there isn't really a ton of injuries that Carolina currently has right now. You were at the press conferences on Monday and Tuesday. Obviously, Mac hit on the injuries on Monday, said Austin Blasky and Darwin Barlow are the only two really being watched this week. Both of those guys have lower body injuries. K'Mon Rucker will be out of the Central game, obviously missed the Charlotte game with a lower body injury. He picked up weightlifting, funny enough. So what can you give us on injuries? And the reason I bring that up too is because one of the things from Saturday's game was there were a lot of guys that either got injured, didn't come back in, or got hurt during the game, and they were still maybe haven't heard official words on them yet. But I think that is a positive news that Blasky and Barlow, per the program, really the only 2 guys right now that are still a little bit questionable this week.
There was no need to bring anybody back in.
Yeah.
So they got a lot out of it. These first 4 games, and I've said many times, they are a gift from the scheduling gods in that they have a chance to play a lot of kids a lot, get a lot of snaps, get a lot of learning, get a lot of stuff on film. One of the things I do not like about the FCS game being later in the year is sometimes it takes that long before a kid gets anything on film. Mm-hmm. Get stuff on film now. And I know that wasn't an FCS game there today, but a lot of kids played. They played 75 guys. They played 69 on either offense or defense. And then 6 others got in the field in special teams. So you get some snaps out there. They get to watch film of themselves. They get to start learning and critiquing. So there's tremendous value in playing a lot of people. So in not bringing some of those guys back, it just meant other guys got more reps. Zach Greenberg got 60 reps at center.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to him Tuesday, and I think that's phenomenal. What's interesting is he's a far more experienced college player than Austin Blaske. Blaske only had 158 snaps at Georgia before coming to Carolina. So he needs reps too, which is why he will play this weekend. At least my understanding is he will play this weekend, but he needs the reps too. But it was wonderful that Greenberg in game number 2 was able to get a lot of snaps at this level out of the way, and he adapted flawlessly, to be perfectly honest with you, and felt like he was back at Muhlenberg. So that's a really, really good thing that happened. So now if something happens to Blaske later in the year and they have to go to Greenberg, he's already done that.
Yeah. It's a positive.
He's already been through it. He's already been baptized at this level. So that's fine. With Rucker being out, and he's not going to be out for very long, Tyler Thompson and J. Brown Harvey, I did a drop about them on Tuesday. They're getting a ton of very valuable reps. It's going to help Carolina in multiple ways. Number one, they got to pull Kamen off every once in a while, just give him a breather. He doesn't want to come off, but they're going to have to pull him off every once in a while. These kids are going to get 3 games of a lot of snaps on film. And I say 3 because they had Charlotte, they had Central, and JMU. I think Kamen will be back for Duke. And they get a lot of stuff to work on, and it's reps. The most important thing you get are game reps. Also, they're the ones that have that job next year because Kamen will be gone. So they're beginning that now. A lot of times you got to wait for the bowl game, like Caleb Cost or Connor Harrell last year or Christian Hamilton. They finally get a lot of reps, and it's in a bowl game, and that's not always the most intense environment. But regular season games are, so they're going to get a lot out of that. So Davion Goss, because Omarion didn't come back. He ended up running for 100 yards, and we got to see who he was in that situation there against Charlotte. So it was a smart decision not to bring guys back. There was no need to do it, and they still won by 18 points with not bringing those guys back. As far as the watching this week, Barlow's got to be careful just because I think Goss, and I've said this all along, going to end up being RB2. He's just really good. He's going to be an all-ACC guy before he leaves Carolina. I've been saying that since day one. He's really, really good. Very impressive. So I think that will be interesting if, what Barlow is when he comes back. What is his role when he comes back? Caleb Hood gave him some good reps the other day. He has a terrible time staying healthy. I actually ran into him on the elevator the other day, and I said, it's good to see you out there playing. I said, you healthy? He says, yeah. Almost like knock on wood. Yeah. We'll see what happens. He's learned how to deal with it. So if he's healthy, that gives him a lot of depth back there. As far as anybody else, Nesbitt be fine. Yeah. I think Blaske's going to play. He's in a boot this week. And he says he could have probably gone back and played the other day, but I think he'll play and he needs to. And let me also add this, Jacob. Connor needs to play with Omarion and Blaske. Yeah. He needs reps. As much as Greenberg needs reps, Connor needs more reps with Blaske and Omarion, which is why I think Omarion will play this weekend. Some people think that he'd be held out because it's Central. I think he'll play because they've got to get Connor up to snuff. The most important thing on this team right now is getting Connor up to snuff. And the more reps he gets with his regular center and with his safety valve All-American running back, the more he's going to grow into whatever form you need him to be once they're in the heart of ACC play. So you will see those guys, in my opinion, this weekend. That's not from the program. It's just the way I see things. Now, they're not going to play 3 quarters unless it's a close game. Yeah, but I think you'll see, 5 or 6 series at the very least, maybe the whole first half. Mac usually plays the first half without really looking too much at the score. Kind of like Roy used to say, you play the first half and you don't worry about the score in the sense that you keep trying to score. And the second half, it's a little bit different if you're in a blowout situation. So I think that's why this game's going to be really interesting. We got to get into that here in a few minutes, but there's a lot of things about this game coming up that typically FCS game would be a throwaway in some ways, not for this team and not at this time of the year. I think there's a lot of very interesting storylines.
Yeah, completely agree. But again, overall, good positive news for Carolina on the injury front, because there were a lot of guys that after during that Charlotte game, you're like, man, I mean, what is the injury like there? And a lot of guys missed some time. So the fact that again it's just two guys that are questionable kind of going into it, obviously K'Mon being out, I think is a massive positive, because it obviously could have been a little bit worse than it has been. I want to talk about the defense for a second. And explosive plays in particular. That was a hot topic at the press conferences on Monday. Obviously, Jeff Collins hit on it quite a lot as well. I'll read a quote from him real quickly. I know you put this out on the Tar Heel Illustrated Twitter as well. I believe it's in your report you wrote too. But from Jeff Collins, there's way too many explosives, and by explosives, it means explosive plays. 80% of their yards were on 8 plays. We can't have those explosive plays. And an interesting thing too that he said as well is he said 4 of those plays, those big ones, were all about leverage, which I think is a very interesting thing. We spent some time, funny enough, before we started recording, talking about kind of what we thought that means. What does leverage mean when it comes to football? And maybe particularly in the secondary is kind of where we identified maybe that's what he was referring to. But again, I think that was maybe my concern or criticism coming out of the Charlotte game, was like, man, Charlotte, okay program, not a great team. At least they've shown in the first couple of games so far this season, but do have some nice parts. Do have a lot of guys that have come from some P4 programs. So there is talent on that roster. But regardless, there were a lot of plays like Jeff Collins mentioned, where it's just these big plays and these big chunks of yards that Carolina lets up, and they're putting themselves in these red zone situations where, granted, and credit to Carolina, they were getting stops, but Charlotte was moving the ball down the field too easily. And like Jeff Collins said, 80% of their yards were on 8 plays total. That's an insane stat right there. So I say all that to say that as Carolina moves deeper into the season, not necessarily this weekend, but JMU and Duke coming up, and Virginia, trip to Virginia not too far away as well, that becomes a concern if you are still having these explosive plays. And again, I like a lot of the things that I've seen from Carolina defensively. I think there's been a lot of improvement, especially on that, on that front seven in particular. But if you're getting up explosive plays against Charlotte, and let's say you give up some explosive plays against Central again and JMU, that's not going to bode well as you go deeper into the season and play tougher competition. So I say all that to say again and ask you, really, how much of a concern do you think the explosive plays are right now? I know it's a topic that Carolina's focusing on, especially Jeff Collins, and trying to identify and trying to correct. But do you think it's a concern right now, or do you think it's, hey, it's 2 games in, new defensive coordinator, a lot of new guys out there as well, let's see how it plays out, and it's not, a major red flag quite yet?
I think it was addressed with a lot of exclamation marks, but it's too early in the season to note trends. Unless there's certain teams like Florida State that have had clear issues in the first 2 games of the line of scrimmage, that's a problem that has to be addressed. As far as this goes, it wasn't like Minnesota completed a lot of passes downfield. But Charlotte did. And yeah, Charlotte's got some talent, but Carolina had a lot of correctable issues. I said after the game, I wrote after the game, that we were told by the kids in the program, by Mac, that the problems that occurred in pass coverage were easily fixable. On Monday, Mac and Jeff Collins talked about it, Collins more in depth, about it being a leverage issue. So we talked to Marcus Allen on Tuesday, and I asked him, I said, in layman's terms, what does it mean when Coach Collins says it was a leverage issue? And basically what he said, to paraphrase, and this is how I understood it, it's the distance that a receiver has. It's the space that a receiver has. And so much of the space that a receiver has when the ball comes is determined when the ball snapped. How does the DB react to it? If the DB doesn't react to it very well, he's going to give up a lot of that space. If he does react to it, there's not as much room to get that ball in there. They're not as open, and that's a leverage issue. And basically, Marcus said there were some things that are so easily fixable in that Miller moment, if you will, where they need to be better, and they have addressed that and been working on it this week. Another reason is also because Caleb Cost is just green. He's wet behind the ears. He participated in 3 spring practices because he was on the baseball team. When he showed up for fall camp, he was sort of anointed as the starting star. So he's in a situation now where, like I said in 3 Things Saturday night, he just needs to play. Marcus Allen was asked yesterday, what does Caleb need to do better? And he said, man, he just needs games. He's got there and play because he's making mistakes right now that can be cleaned up. They're on film. Eye in the sky don't lie. And he can look at that stuff and try to figure out how to fix it, obviously with the coaches helping him. So it's okay to have a game where you give up 8 explosive plays when you win by 18 points. You can use them as massive teaching tools at this stage of the season. Sometimes teams play crappy opponents early on and they blow them out and they shut them down, and then they get exposed when they get into league play. Now, Carolina may end up not being a very good defense. We don't really know just yet, but the breaks in their coverage, some of the issues in coverage have been exploited now. Now they know what to fix. So maybe they don't have false confidence going into Duke, and suddenly Malik Murphy hits them with a bunch of explosive pass plays. So they're getting a lot of that stuff on record now. They're fixing it. They're working meticulously, especially with Caleb, at getting him up to snuff as well. And I will say this also. People are really harping on the big plays, but remember, the Minnesota game, Carolina had 14 missed tackles. 11 were by DBs. Against Charlotte, Carolina had 3 missed tackles. 1 was by a DB. Marcus Allen, who's gotten criticized pretty heavily because he did give up a couple of big plays the other day, look at how he's hitting. Look at how he's tackling, his open field tackling. Look at the hit he made on one of the goal line stands. I'm not sure if that's the one that ended up with a field goal or not, but he's much more physical. They want to be a more physical team, and he is definitely that. He's also learning how to play man coverage, so he's going to get better as well. I don't think there's any concern right now in the program about the explosives. However, like you said, Jacob, if Central hits on 5 or 6, 25 yards or more, I think then there will be a bigger concern. It was treated like it was a dire situation, but I think walking out of that film session, I don't think they believe it is just yet. If it becomes one, it will be dealt with. If Central doesn't hit on any big plays, that doesn't mean it's not an issue.
No.
If JMU doesn't, it doesn't mean it's when you get into ACC play, because you're going to have, what do they have? They have Malik Murphy, Eli Holstein, and Haynes King in a row.
Yeah.
And then they go up to Anthony Calandria. They're going to have to face Castellanos.
You're going to get figured out, if you're going to get found out. So if that's a problem,
whatever DJU is, they're going to have to deal with him. And you got to figure they'll be better. The bottom line is you're going to be facing a different animal here in 2 weeks for the rest of the way than they dealt with so far.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree with you. I don't think it's a massive concern yet, but it's another TBD. And again, we talk about this a lot, AJ, but we're 2 games in, man. There's things you can pick up on and things we'll identify. We identified in 3 things after the game of like, okay, well, let's keep an eye on this. This needs to get better. Let's keep an eye on that and see how this progresses. But for us to come on here and be like, yep, it's a problem. They're screwed. They're going to give up big plays all year. That's not how we operate here, and that's just not a realistic way to operate. A lot of this stuff is still TBD, not only because of the opponents, and again, no disrespect to the opponents right now that Carolina's playing, but we just got to see how these things get worked out, particularly on the defense with a new coordinator. I think we can't forget that too. We're acting like Jeff Collins has been here for 5 years. This is a new defense. He's 2 games in. He's looking and tweaking things and trying to figure out what Carolina's doing well and not doing well. And again, you got to just have faith and trust in him that, hey, he's going to identify those things and figure it out. And the missed tackles too, AJ. He did that.
Yeah.
That was addressed and it was improved against Charlotte. So Charlotte
was 2 for 14 on 3rd down. That's the money down.
Yeah.
The defense is 16th in the nation against the run. You're watching Travis Shaw cause problems. You're watching Des Evans cause problems. Don't judge them by their stats. Watch how they occupy blockers. Watch how they open up opportunities for teammates to take advantage of. The defensive front has been better, from how they get off the ball to playing lower to neutralizing their area to occupy multiple blockers. There aren't that many missed tackles in the backfield. Remember how many there were before?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There haven't been that many in the backfield. So there are a lot of things that, if people are going to harp on the 8 explosive plays, and I think they're worth discussing. That's why it's our number 2 item tonight. What is it right now? It's the season, man. It's all
right now. By the time
if they're going to harp on the 8 explosives, you also must give credence they had 8 explosive plays and they ran 56 snaps. So what did the other 48 snaps do? Not much.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen progress on the defense. Got to see it again. I don't know if they'll be tested enough this week. Madison scored 13 points against the Gardner Webb. They may not be tested then. Duke doesn't seem to be awfully potent just yet. Maybe they're not totally tested then, but I do like Murphy. I think Malik Murphy's the kind of kid that could explode at some point, so they're going to have to be ready for that. Mm-hmm. So we've seen a lot of good things on defense. The explosives are what they are. We will know in a couple of weeks. By the end of the Duke game, we will know if that's a problem area or if it was just a weird flare-up with a really young, wet behind-the-ears guy getting a lot of lessons.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think a reason it's been maybe a hot topic amongst Carolina fans too is because it's just been something that I know Gene Chizik's defenses were heavily criticized for with those catastrophic plays, Jay Bateman's to an extent. So I think at this point from a Carolina fan perspective, it's probably being so harped on because it's like, and this is, I've talked to some Carolina fans about this of like, I really like a lot of what I'm seeing, but this theme is still here and it needs to be cut out. But again, I pump the brakes kind of like you're saying and say there are some improvements, a ton of improvements. One game doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a theme throughout the rest of the season. It's too early to tell. So let's see what happens. But again, you can sit here and analyze those explosive plays all you want, AJ. Again, rightly so, something brought up in the press conferences, but you can also sit here and without, I can sit here and say this without any doubt in my mind that there have been a lot of major improvements on defense so far. So let's see if that continues to happen and be a theme. So just had to bring that up too, because I know that's, Carolina fans like to, especially when it comes to the defense, it's a little bit of a touchy subject at times. And I can understand why.
It's the punching bag is like right here. You don't have to reach for it. It's just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. It's easy to harp on that a little bit to focus on the negatives on that side of the ball. But again, let's just see what happens as Carolina gets a little bit deeper into the season and, the opponents get even tougher. But yeah, Joe, let's move on to the offense now. I want to talk a little bit about that because I think one of the most interesting things for me, in my opinion, at least that came out of the Monday's pressers was some of the talk about how the offense is going to be catered more now towards, Connor Harrell's skills and his strengths and everything like that. And I know one of the things that was kind of discussed is right now in practice this week, they're kind of in the process of throwing out things that Connor maybe doesn't do very well or can't do, maybe things that just don't align with his skill sets. At the same time, adding some things that they think he can do really well. And, obviously tweaking game plans depending on what, the opposing defenses are going to bring as well. But I thought that was intriguing because, again, there's such a small sample size with Connor Harrell coming into this season. I mean, you had, some clips against Campbell last year. If you're looking at last season in the West Virginia game, and obviously he hurt his ankle early in that one, not to mention, a lot of the Carolina's better players did not play in that game or were sitting out. So it wasn't like he was running really with the first team offense in a lot of different ways. Especially look at the tight end room in that West Virginia game. There was literally nobody. But now you've got some film. You got a little bit from Minnesota, not a ton because of, like we've talked about a few times. The message to Connor when he came in against Minnesota was, hey, just go manage the game and get us in field goal range and we'll kick some field goals. Let's see if we can do that. It wasn't go win us the game really necessarily right now and go throw the ball all over.
And he did it.
And he did it too. So that's a positive. And then you look at the Charlotte game, you got a ton of film from that game. Finally, you can kind of say, all right, let's sit down and let's see and let's analyze and let's talk to Connor as well and say, hey, how'd you feel in this situation? How'd you feel on that play? What'd you do wrong on that play? So not only is it a benefit to him, but I think it's obviously a benefit to Chip Lindsey and Mac Brown and everybody on that offensive staff. So I when I look at that quote, it leads me to believe, okay, early in the season, very early in Connor Harrell's tenure as a starter, now in theory, you'd think you'd start to see some improved performances. And not only that, but him being a little bit more comfortable out there, not only because he has more game reps, that's major, but just the fact that the game plan and what they're asking him to do is going to be more catered toward what he's proven he's able to do and what he's comfortable doing out there as well. So I think it's a very interesting thing. And I think maybe because of that now, I know the opponent in Central should be a relatively comfortable win, JMU to an extent, but again, the schedule just lines up perfectly with that because Carolina's got 2 more weeks potentially of, okay, we're learning even more about what Connor's doing. We're putting him in these situations. He's either excelling in these situations or maybe he's struggling in some of these situations. We're putting him in. Let's throw that game plan out the window and focus more on what he's doing well. So I would think because of this, you'd start to see maybe some more improved performances from Connor Harrell and maybe a little bit more comfortability for him out there. So what did you make of that? Because that was a very interesting thing for me to hear. It's not shocking. It's not surprising by any means, but it does lead me to believe, okay, let's let's not judge, and we obviously can't, but let's not judge Connor Harrell, but so much from this first game and a half, not even. Let's see what happens over these next few weeks as the game plan is catered a lot more towards what he's good at.
For the first time in his college life, he is coming off a game in which he started, basically played the whole game, and had to get into a normal game week to prepare for the next game as the starting quarterback. He has not done that before. Previously, the only game he had started was the bowl game, and he had 8 months to dissect that. So I asked him on Tuesday about that, and it's a little different. He's processing differently. He now has to do things sort of on the fly because it's such a quick period when you're in the midst of it between games to process, fix, and prepare. And one thing that's interesting, he said, yes, some things that maybe he needs to work on, he might not be working on this week because it's not part of the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
So the stuff that he's working on during the week are only things pertaining to the upcoming game plan for that game that's coming up that week, which is interesting. But I think right now you're going to see growth from him because he's now starting to exercise the role of starting quarterback. It's one thing to be told you're going to start, after Minnesota, they had the extra couple of days because they played on a Thursday, and he only played 17 snaps, and they had a really tiny playbook for him to get those 17 snaps. They opened the playbook up some against Charlotte, in part to affect the game, in part to see what he can do. I think you'll see more of that this Saturday as well. So I think it's exciting and fresh in this program to see a guy in the middle of the process where Connor is right now. And again, as you said, it is an absolute scheduling gift that they have these games here because it gives him time and opportunity to make mistakes in games that they should win without too much trouble. I know Madison will be okay, but Madison hasn't been too impressive yet. They barely beat Gardner-Webb last week, and a very good friend of mine is a booster at Madison. His daughter used to cheer there, and he's like, Tar Heels are going to kill JMU. JMU stinks. It's like, dude, you guys have been winning forever for years. You don't stink that bad. But one thing I didn't realize, and I know this because my brother is an Indiana grad, and he's a huge Indiana football fan. He's one of the few of them. Kurt Cignetti is the coach at IU. He was at JMU. He took like 17 players or something like that with him, or 10 players. I don't know what the number is, but like 5 starters.
Wow.
So they're not the same team. So the next 2 games are an amazing opportunity for Connor to get 80 to 100 snaps to continue improving, but also Chip Lindsey and Lonnie Galloway continuing to figure out what he can do and what he can't do. As you astutely pointed out, it's tossing stuff out. It's like they're going down the yellow brick road, and they're, instead of accumulating dudes like a Lion and a Tin Man and stuff, they're tossing stuff out because it's more important right now they find out what Connor can't do, because over time they will find out what he can do. But it's imperative in these games they find out what just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And that's what I find to be fascinating. I think you're going to see more trickery. I think you're going to see more option. That option pitch he had, where he pitched it after the line of scrimmage. I mean, I love the triple option. I know everybody hated when Georgia Tech ran it, but when they ran it properly, it was an absolute thing of beauty. I love watching the offensive lineman. And you've got a guy in Connor, once he's better at selling that, if you can run that thing 5 or 6, 7 times a game, teams must prepare for it.
100%.
And that's going to set up other things. So it's going to be an evolving offense because Connor is an evolving player and everything centers around him. He is the most important player on this team times 1,000 right now. And perhaps one could say as Connor goes, so goes the team this season. I think there's something accurate about that statement. I think there's some truth to that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pressure on him, but I'm gauging him as in each time we talk to him to how does he change? Is he starting to morph in the role as the guy? Because a quarterback just can't be a position player. Mm-hmm. He's got to be the guy. He's got to be. People don't have to hear his voice, but they have to respect him. When he walks into a room, QB1 is here. Like Sam wasn't very vociferous, but man, they knew when he walked in the room.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Drake was pretty loud and Drake was cracking up and things like that, but they also knew to respect him because Drake wanted to beat everybody's butt in there.
Mm-hmm.
So they always sense that competitive juice. They're all figuring out with Connor, and Connor is probably slowly morphing into that guy that was in high school in Alabaster, Alabama, leading his team to multiple state championships at the highest level in the state of Alabama. Kind of going back to some of that guy, mixing it with the new guy here in college. So it's going to be fun to watch. That's why I think this weekend is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a throwaway game at all. Connor needs to play well. I'm not going to look so much at his numbers to determine if he plays well, Jacob. It's how he goes about it, his checkdowns, his footwork. The touchdown on the flea flicker to Christian Hamilton the other day, that ball was supposed to go to John Copenhaver, who, by the way, was wide open.
Yeah.
Connor threw it to the wrong guy, and Hamilton kind of joked yesterday when we talked to him. He's like, "Yeah." I said, "Did you feel like a punt returner there for a second?"
I think it was in the air for a while.
Because the way that ball was coming, he tried as diplomatically as he could to say no. But yeah, that play worked, but it didn't go according to plan.
Yeah.
But it still worked. Just like the throw across the field to J.J. Jones for a first down when he was scrambling. That was the one that Max screamed in the press conference about. But it worked. So what I said the other day, and I'll say it again, Connor has shown an ability to make chicken soup out of chicken crap. Mm-hmm. But he first needs to get the basics down, because to me, chicken soup out of chicken crap, those are Christmas tree decorations. Mm-hmm. But Christmas tree decorations don't do you a whole lot of good, either when you don't have a tree or the tree sucks.
Yeah.
And you put the decoration up there and the petals are so dry, it just falls right off. Mm-hmm. So he's got to get the tree, the stand. He's got to have healthy branches. The petals got to be healthy. Got to have water in there. That's what he needs now. And then when all the decorations come, there's going to be a pretty complete quarterback who I think is going to be fairly entertaining for people to watch and pretty productive.
Yeah, you make an interesting point, too. I like what you said about him kind of growing into that QB1 leadership role, too, because I remember Mac talking about Drake and Drake's year when he was competing for the starting spot. And I'm going to paraphrase this story, but I remember Mac talking to Drake and be like, "Hey, Drake, be a little more vocal. You got to be a leader." And it's like Drake was like, "Coach, I'm not the starter. Like, it's hard to do that when you're not the guy." And then when he became the guy, he grew into that. It wasn't something that just happens overnight, though. Yeah. Connor found himself in a very similar position. I mean, he's had to sit behind Drake, and he goes into this year in the first game against Minnesota. He's not the starter. There's packages for him, but we don't see him at all until Max Johnson goes down. And then all of a sudden, in the first game of the year, in the third quarter, in the heat of the battle, hey, go out there and do your thing. And then, a week goes by fast in college football, especially when you're preparing for a game and you're going to school and everything. Gets that first start under his belt. It wouldn't surprise me at all if now you start to see that more. He's been in front of you guys a lot more, talking to the media as well. He's the face of the program now. You know what I mean? He's one of those guys. But that's not something that's just like, "Oh, you're the starter now, go lead." No, you got to grow into that, especially when you haven't been at Carolina. So I think that's it's a great point. It's a great recall, because Mac has talked about that a few times. But keep in mind, Drake won the job. Yeah. Connor got it by default. It's a good point. Very good point.
So it's going to take longer. And Connor is a totally different kind of personality. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, Connor is a very thoughtful guy. He's valedictorian for a reason. He's a thoughtful guy.
Smart kid, man. Yeah.
And I think what he needs to maybe shift into that role you're talking about, he needs a, holy crap kind of performance.
Yeah.
So if he posts huge numbers in the first half against Central, and Central, let's face it, and they've played 6 games against power conference teams in the last decade. The combined score in those 6 games is 323-43. They just got blown out at home by Elon.
Yeah, that score surprised me.
I don't think this is going to be a highly competitive game. If it is, shame on Carolina. There's an opportunity for Connor to show off some stuff, and for him to feel like he did back in the day when he was leading teams to state titles, and for his teammates to see him do it in a game situation, give him the game ball kind of performances, and then that's going to start to come out more and more. He's still QB1 by default. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of psychology to that.
Of course.
I don't doubt, especially at that position. Tyler Thompson starting a place at Kamen Rucker. I don't think Tyler is having the same issues adjusting to that maybe Connor would, because of the nature of the position. Number one, the last two starters over 5 years that Carolina had at that position, and also because you go from being on the bench, not taking any snaps, to suddenly being the most important guy in the game. It's different for Tyler Thompson to have made that, and Jabron Harden made that transition, because they aren't the most important guy in the game. They never will be unless they're involved in a specific play at a specific moment in time. It's just that fleeting second. Mm-hmm. Connor is, period.
Yeah, he's the guy now. The quarterback. A lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure being that. But let's continue to see how he develops into that, because you are right. You make a great point with him default kind of being the starter now. There is a little bit of we talk about human nature all the time. There's human nature that comes with that. I mean, that it takes some adjustment. Yeah, of course.
Jacob, I'm 6 feet away from him yesterday when we're talking to him, and I see human nature written all over him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's dripping with human nature. I do think he seemed more comfortable with us yesterday. He kind of told some funny stuff, and the eye contact is pretty good, but it's also good beforehand and afterward. Like before we'd all hit record, he'd walk up and you could tell he was a little nervous, like, okay, hope I don't say anything dumb, that kind of thing. I'm not saying he's saying that, but a lot of kids think that way.
Yeah.
And sometimes Jeremy will pep him up beforehand, but he seemed more comfortable. Drake would come in like, let's get this over with. He'd lean in there and he'd pat he would do the Drake thing. Sam would take the questions, wouldn't say a whole lot, say super 500 times. Mm-hmm. Connor is going to figure out who he is in a press conference too. And I thought we saw a step forward in comfort yesterday. And that's part of being QB1. If you're not comfortable with us, you're not going to be super comfortable in the game just yet. Connor told us Saturday night that he was nervous in the game. I asked Mac about, at one point, should your quarterback not be nervous anymore? And Max said, I'm not sure it was him being nervous. It was more being anxious. And being anxious isn't a bad thing, because anxious is a word with a giant tree of how you want to use that word in this situation. If he's anxious because he's afraid of making a mistake, that's one thing. If he's anxious because he just wants to get out there and play, then that's entirely different. So I think in his case, it's a lot of prongs of the word anxious that are affecting him. So maybe this Saturday he knocks a few of those prongs off. Then the Saturday against JMU, he knocks a few more off. So suddenly he goes into Duke, and that anxiety isn't as much of a heavy weight as it might have been this past Saturday against Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's one of the cool things about watching. That's why I always tell people, watch the press conferences, watch the interviews, man, because you can pick up on stuff like that, especially with at that position, when, again, that's the most important position on the team. You can see a guy kind of grow into that in front of your eyes, especially if the performances continue to get better. So
that's one of the reasons, we have the interviews, and that's one of the reasons at Carolina they give you the quarterback every week.
Exactly. It's so important.
Jeremy has always taught, generally speaking, had PJ Fleck put out a depth chart, we would have gotten Max Johnson a week before the opener.
Yeah.
Because they would have named him as the starter. Now, Max has had plenty of interview opportunities at LSU and Texas A&M. Connor hasn't had a lot. We had him last year before the bowl game, the day before the bowl game, and of course afterward. That was all very, very new to him. He's still new to him, and he's adjusting, but that's part of the growth. You got to be a face of the program. We're going to put you out in front. You're going to speak for the program. So you have to be that guy. So all the dog in you has to be funneled into one area in that realm and on the field. It's all the same connection right there, the same parts. It's part of the same path. And I think that that's part of the maturation process. And they know it. Mac knows what the hell he's doing. Been doing this for a long time. He's turned out some pretty good players. And he understands that you get a quarterback up there, he's going to feel like the man because he's being asked questions about being the man. Mm-hmm. And he's going to talk about the mistakes he made and the good things that he did and about his teammates and about being the voice and that kind of thing. That's going to help him become that guy on the field. There's no way that it can't. That's also part of human nature.
Absolutely. No, see, it'll be fun to watch, him mature in front of our eyes a little bit. And again, if the performances continue to get better and continues to play well, that's when you really start to see it coming out. I mean, that does obviously play a
and he will play better. He will play better.
I think so as well. And hopefully he'll play better starting with Central this weekend. Let's dive into the Central preview real quick. Should be a relatively short preview. Again, this is a game that Carolina should win. It's a game that Carolina shouldn't really be tested in. I like what you said earlier. If Carolina struggles in this one, then shame on Carolina. Max talked about Carolina preparing to a standard every week. That's how they have to approach this one again. That's what you can get out of these games. If they come out kind of flat and kind of slow and struggle early on the first couple quarters, maybe it's a tighter game than it should be at halftime, then that's something you can kind of take away and be like, okay, maybe this team wasn't really prepared and wasn't preparing for the standard that they've set going into this one. But Central sitting at 1-1 on the year in the MEAC conference. Head coach Trey Oliver is at the helm of the program. Wins over Alabama State in the first game, 31-24, and then a loss to Elon at home, 41-19. I was surprised by that scoreline, to be honest with you. When I saw that scoreline, I was gasped internally a little bit, like, whoa, I didn't expect that one from that scoreline there. But again, I think it shows again that this is a program that, like you said, you read out that static with their record against some, Division I Power 5 programs. It's not great, and this should be a game that Carolina is winning relatively comfortably. And I'm not going to sit here and give you keys to victory, but I will say that a few things we've discussed. What I'm looking for on defense, can they cut out those explosive plays? Do we not see those? Those have to be cut out in games like this. You should not be giving up 8 explosive plays to a team like North Carolina Central. It's no disrespect to them. You just shouldn't be. Do we see that cut out? Do we see continued pressure in that building, especially on that front seven? Are we still seeing pressure up front and a lot of guys getting to the quarterback? Because I think that's been a positive for Carolina. Is the run defense still as good as it has been so far early in this year? Building on the standard at some of the performances they've set is what I'm going to be looking for on defense. And very similar thing on offense too, AJ. It's, again, we just talked about it. Harrell, are we seeing improved performances from him? Is he continuing to make strides and make progress in his position and get more comfortable out there? That's what I'll be looking for there. And I think all over the place, it's the same thing really from an offense. Betting in with a new quarterback, getting comfortable with what he's doing, because Connor Harrell's got, one good thing for him is he has a ton of good players and weapons around him. It's not like they're barren in any respect with running back position or wide receivers or anything like that. So I think my biggest focus on the offense is O-line to an extent, because you want to see them building on those performances and continue to improve and giving Connor Harrell time and protection out there. But I think really what I'm going to be focusing on is just the quarterback position, because most important position on the team, and there's still question marks there. It's only, we're only at one full game start into Connor Harrell's, regular season career as a starter at North Carolina. So that'll be the position that I won't be the only one watching pretty heavily. So what are your thoughts on the game? What are you going to be kind of looking at in terms of offense and defense on Saturday?
Execution, obviously. Connor, execution, the guys up front. I'm probably going to watch Evans a little bit more and Shaw a little bit more than I had been. I really want to watch Thompson and Harvey at the rush position. I like them both. They're both very different players. How do they use them? Thompson, I've said this 4,000 times. I remember the first practice I saw him at, he was a string bean, man. And now he's put on some weight and he looks smooth coming out of the tunnel. He looks like a dude that could tear your head off and be glad doing it. So I want to see how those guys play. The leverage stuff, the big explosive pass plays. This is a very important game. Also to get some young ones in there. I'd like to see for them, for their development, what I'd look for is, how often can they just drop Connor back into the pocket and have him throw out of the pocket? And when he does that, does he throw to everybody, or does he start locking in on two guys, McCollum and JJJ or something like that? That will be very interesting to see how he goes about things when he's in the pocket, as opposed to when they move the pocket, run him out, have some of the option things and everything else that they run. They run a ton of RPOs with him. So I'm just curious. You know how I am. I love the games in football because each one is a chapter in a story. And basketball, each week or so is a chapter in a story. I get it. I don't get excited about what will the outcome be so much because I have no personal bearing on that. But I do get excited about seeing how guys will play, because that's generally determines what I'm going to write about, how I'm going to approach it. And I enjoy that a lot. And I think that this weekend's game is not a throwaway game for Carolina fans. I'm going to go to the beach one last time. I don't need to watch that. It's just Central. If you truly care about this football program and this team, and you're going to be one of the guys screaming and yelling when they play State at the end of November, you got to watch a game like this, because the team that plays State at the end of November is going to get a lot out of this game to help them become that club. Mm-hmm. Again, I repeat, this is not a throwaway game. They're not going to lose, but it's not a throwaway game. There is a ton that they can learn and get out of this game, and that's why I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fun one. They all are, but I'm looking forward to this one as I look forward to all of them. Hey, real quickly too, AJ, I've got a question from a fan on Twitter. We skipped it last week because I completely forgot to post the question. So that was that was 100%.
No, that's on me too, because I forgot too.
Just completely went over my head. I remembered about halfway through the podcast, like, oh shit, I forgot to do that. So I do have a question, and I had a few questions, and a couple of them were similar. So I'm going to read this one off. And this is something that Mac and, Jeff Collins have talked about. They've been asked about it at times, but this is from @Gutson on Twitter, GUTSON. How far is Jacoby Criswell from Connor Harrell? How would you answer that one? Because again, I know
he's still got a way to go. He's still got a way to go.
Yeah.
Even Chip said this week that he's coming. You don't say he's coming if he's not there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they got to keep Connor healthy. Mm-hmm. You'll see Jacoby get quite a few reps Saturday because they need to get him ready, because he's now one snap away.
Absolutely.
But if they had to play an ACC game today and Connor went down on the first snap, I think that they would be concerned. Yeah. I'm not going to. That's exactly how it would be. So does that mean that Jacoby isn't going to be able to help if he's pressed into duty? No, that doesn't mean that at all. But if Chip Lindsey is saying he's still got a way to go, and I'm paraphrasing, that means he still has a way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody loves the backup quarterback. It was everybody's favorite player. And I've got a lot of questions about that. I mean, like I said, I had multiple questions on Twitter.
He's not close to the player Connor. Yeah. He's not the player Connor is. Connor could do everything. Mm-hmm. Jacoby can't do everything.
Yeah.
So, but again, Jacoby ends up their quarterback. I still think they can win some with him. Mm-hmm. I think they have a better chance at winning with Connor right now.
Agreed. And you don't want to be, the fact of the matter is Criswell was a third string quarterback going into the year. You don't really necessarily in a perfect world want to be playing your third string quarterback by the third or fourth game or anything like that. Yeah. No, but it is interesting because I do get a ton of questions about that, but I always joke around and say everybody loves a backup quarterback. They think they can, solve all the world's problems. So
you have your backup quarterback on the field now. So he's by default, he's now QB1. So be happy with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just monitor progress and execution.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Appreciate Gutson for asking those questions. And I'll do a better job over the next couple of shows of getting those questions out a little bit earlier, on our message boards as well, so we can get a few more in there. But did want to go ahead and read that one out. And we appreciate everybody who did ask a question and keep asking them. We'll get to them as we go deeper in to the season. But AJ, I think that's a good place to wrap this one up. We've gone about 50 minutes on this one. That's a heck of a lot better than we've done in the past couple of weeks. I think we went an hour and 30 on one, which was, I enjoyed the conversation.
Oh, and we did give out the 1-year sub. I just can't remember who it was to. I'm sorry.
Did you give it out? Nice. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Love that, man.
We always do.
Yeah.
In fact, why the hell not? In fact.
Okay, here we go.
Since someone stayed this long, what I want is today. This. We're going to do a competition.
Okay.
How many snaps will Connor take Saturday?
Ooh, I like that. Closest person to the number gets a 1-year subscription.
Closest person to the number. Now, if there are multiples that hit it exactly right, then I'll just give out multiple.
That's a good one, AJ, because you asked that in a regular ACC game. It's a little bit easier because he's going to play the whole game, and this one, you could. I don't know
how many snaps. How many snaps will Connor get? Just go ahead and send us a DM or post on Twitter. I kind of like the DM because one of the guys that won last week did DM because it's easier to track because it's right there in that box. Mm-hmm. So you could do it on Twitter if you want. I'd rather you send it to us in DM, Twitter DM, and also, you can tweet it at us and just try to make sure that we see it or something like that. We do have our new email that I should probably put up there, but I don't want to cloud it with this right now. I would rather you just go ahead and DM us, because sometimes people can't send us DMs if we're not following them because we're certified. Is that the way it works?
I don't know for a fact. I have heard about that, but I don't know 100% if everybody.
You can tweet it to us and note in there that you can't send us a direct message.
Yeah.
And then that way we'll get it. So try to send it in direct message if you can. If you can't, do it on Twitter, but no, it would say, hey, I try to send this direct message, but I can't. So here's my note.
I like that.
How many snaps will Connor play? You get a 1-year sub, THI, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, for free, man. A lot of perks of doing that. And again, if you don't want to do that and you'd rather just go sign up, we'd appreciate that as well. $8.33 a month. Links in the description below. Great time to do so. Basketball starting next month, so it's not far away at all. Basketball practice starting here in a couple weeks as well. So great time to get involved over there before the things really start ramping up on both fronts, and obviously recruiting. Carolina got a couple commitments this past week as well from on the football side. So if you want more intel on that, you want to hear about some of that stuff before it even happens, you can get involved on our premium message boards. Again, $8.33 a month. And if you don't want to sign up, but you want to support what we do here, we greatly appreciate it. You can shoot us a Venmo at Tar Heel Illustrated. That link's in the description below. We'd much rather you sign up, but if you want to just give a quick little donation and a quick thanks for everything we do here, all that money goes directly back into the business and paying staff and travel and all that jazz. So it obviously goes to running this thing. We're not just pocketing that. So we appreciate all that as well.
By the way, they're going to take a bigger class in 26.
Okay, good to know. Yeah,
it's a small class in 25. They've got nice 2 4-stars and 3 commits.
Yeah, nice little start.
And Zaid Lott's going to end up a 4-star.
Yeah, a nice little start.
That'd be 3 4-star. Yeah, it's good. I think that this class is going to reflect improvement in NIL. Yeah,
that's good to see. I know a lot of Carolina fans will be excited to hear that, because NIL has been a hot topic of conversation in the past couple of years, not only from fans, but
a little bit.
But Mac as well. He ain't scared to talk about it either. So, yeah, good start in the 26 class for North Carolina, and we'll see what they continue to add. And again, Misty and the Kings all over it, man. So, if you want to be involved over there and you want to hear about more of that stuff and what's going on behind the scenes of recruiting, TarHeelIllustrated.com, $8.33 a month. Links in the description below. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Another edition of the UNC Football Show. We appreciate you guys watching. As always, if you think Carolina's going to win on Saturday, go ahead and like the video below. And if you're optimistic about what Carolina can do this year, go ahead and like the video below as well. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you're seen every single time we upload, which is a great thing to do. Side note, press conferences go up. If you want to be the first to see those and get notified directly when they're up, I know a lot of fans like to go listen to them. Hit that notification bell. You'll know exactly when they're posted after games and everything. And yeah, guys, we appreciate it as always. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks.